In this video, we're going to look at types of solutions to a problem, and we're also going to look at absolute value. So getting started with types of solutions, when solving equations, you have three different options for solutions. There could be no solution, such as 5 equals 4. That's not true. You could have infinite solutions. Sometimes we also call this an identity. So if you're solving a problem for a variable, you might end up getting x equal to x, meaning any number would satisfy the equation. Same would be true if you got something like 5 equals 5, a truth value, for instance. That's an identity or infinite solutions. And most commonly, we're going to have one solution. So when you solve an equation or inequality, you're going to find one solution. Let's look at some examples. So the first thing we have to do is get rid of grouping symbols. dp, the distributive property. We're going to simplify. And then subtractive property of equality. Identity, so this is infinite solutions. Let's look at another one. So 40x minus 24. Negative 18x minus 24. And this is going to be the distributive property. This is going to be the additive property of equality. I'm going to add 24 to both sides. We're going to do the division property of equality next. And divide both sides by x. Going to be left with 40 equals negative 18, meaning no solution. So there's an example of how we find solutions and determine whether we have infinitely many, one, or no solution. Next thing we're going to look at is absolute value equations. So absolute value is a number or term without a sign, meaning it's always positive. What absolute value means is it's the distance away from zero. And distance is always positive. So if we think of a number line with 0 here, and I'm looking at 4, and let's look at negative 4. These are both 4 units away from 0. So their absolute value is going to be the same. The picture here is what the absolute value of x looks like. These here are what we call absolute value bars. They are generally vertical lines that extend above and below the line of text. So let's look at how we solve them. So up to a point, it's the same step. So let me get to that point, and then we'll talk about it. So we're going to do is a little bit different. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract 4 on both sides first. Okay, and then we're going to divide both sides by 3. So we're left with the absolute value of 2x plus 1 equaling 7. Now, the absolute value in here, the product of an absolute value could be positive or negative. So at this point, what we have to do is solve 2 separate solutions, because this could be equal to -7 or +7, and the absolute value would make it equal to 7. So what we do is we remove the absolute value bars, and we have 2x plus 1 equals 7, and then we also solve 2x plus 1 equaling -7. Now that we have our 2 different solutions found, now we can continue the solving process like we would normally. So we're trying to solve for x, so we're going to subtract 1 from both sides. Then we divide by 2. So x equals -4 is one solution. And then we look at the other side, we subtract 1. So our 2 solutions are x equals -4 and x equals 3. With absolute value, you'll always have 2 solutions except for the vertex. And the vertex being the point of the parabola. So here, let me watch another one. So this one is unique because there's -8. There's no way for us to get a -8 out of an absolute value, because absolute value is the distance away from 0. So this one's easy in that we can say it is no solution. Talking about absolute value and graphing of absolute value. So as I mentioned in the previous set of notes, this point right here is the vertex. Okay. The general form for an absolute value is listed right here. It is a absolute value of x minus h plus k, where the vertex is h comma k. So for this blue example, h comma k is 0 comma 0. And then a represents the slope of the lines. So if we look, slope, rise over run, 1 over 1. So that's, for this example, we're going to have 1, x minus 0, absolute value, plus 0. Or simply just y equals the absolute value of x. So in this video, we looked at the types of solutions, one, many, or no solution, and then we also looked at absolute value. Talked about what absolute value is, how we solve problems with absolute value, and then the graphing basics of absolute value.